Hey, what is going on, guys? This is SMEB Reviews, and today we are taking a look at the second EP from Grandson titled A Modern Tragedy, Volume 2. Let's get to it. I've made it very clear that I'm a big Grandson fan. I have a ton of respect for what he does, and his way that he blends a more rock sound with some trap inspired percussion and some more rap elements. He does a really good job at it, and I've heard a lot of people say that it's very difficult to blend rap and rock, and while I agree, he is an artist that does it very well, and I absolutely love his style. He's very politically driven, and I have had a ton of appreciation for all of his music in the past. I was very excited for this release. It was something that I was really looking forward to, one of the ones I'm really looking forward to in this year. And up front, I'm going to say that I was not disappointed. Now, while I said that he does blend rock and the more trap-inspired elements, he also starts to implement some more electronic elements in this EP, and that's something a little new for him. There were some electronic elements in the last EP and some of his last singles, but in this EP, we seem to get a lot more of that. This is especially prevalent in Sttgmata, which is an excellent song. And I could see how a lot of people might not like a very futuristic-y sort of synth sound, along with these other two sounds that we've already established he's very good at. But it works really well, especially with this song, a song focused on the digital age and digital martyrdom, and it works really well. It does fit thematically with the lyrical content, and it sounds really good. It just adds a very futuristic-y and a lot of tension to the song. I did do a single review of it, and it was the only single off this EP, but I do love Apologize. It's a really good song about just owning who you are, and yes, it's a fairly cliched topic, but Grandson puts his own spin on it, and it really actually does work. I don't just say this as a fan of Grandson. It's an interesting song with some blues rocky sort of sounds, and it does work really well, and it's fun. It's a really uplifting song in a catalog of more politically driven and more depressing songs, which is fine. It's just the truth of the matter. Which, speaking of the more darker political tones, we have Darkside, which it really does sum up the difference between this album and A Modern Tragedy Volume 1, because this EP is much darker as a whole, and obviously it's seen here, because our main song that was focusing on gun violence in A Modern Tragedy Volume 1 was Stick Up, an excellent song, my favorite off of the EP, but while it was a darker song, it wasn't necessarily dark and more dealing with just reality. It focused more on a war vet coming back and having some PTSD, and then the results of that. It was a darker song, but it didn't necessarily take a darker tone. In this, though, oh, it absolutely does, because this is the gun violence song off of this EP, which is a major topic for Grandson, and something that I don't discourage him from doing. I'm merely just pointing out that it is a major thing that he does like to emphasize on in his music. So, in this song, it focuses more on a kid who had been bullied and his transition and how he became a school shooter, and it's a dark song, both in lyrical tone and in production. It is one of the darkest songs off of this EP, and honestly in Grandson's discography as a whole, and it's a really good song. It's honestly probably my favorite. It rivals Stick Up as my favorite Grandson song because it is so incredibly good. It takes a very surface level look at the mindset of a shooter, and I do think that it's probably for the best because it puts it in good taste, because it is a very touchy subject. Obviously, it's something that's affected a lot of families and a lot of people, so he takes a very surface level look at it, which I do think was probably smart, as you don't want to get too in depth, as you could be stepping on some toes, and I think that he made a good decision, and like I said, obviously I think it's one of the best songs that he's ever put out. Unfortunately, there is one song on this EP that doesn't really connect with me, and that's Fallin, in parentheses, Temptation, which I do know Grandson has said is one of the most personal songs to him, and I'm not trying to discredit that or say that he wasn't being personal or introspective, but whenever I hear it, it just doesn't connect with me. It's a song with production that really adds a lot of tension. which a lot of his music does. And so this very slow, mid-tempo pace is really, it just drags, and it makes the song really boring. There's no payoff in the chorus. It all just kind of remains stagnant. And again, I do actually really, I don't mind a slower Grandson song. I don't think that that's a problem. It's just that the production here kind of adds a lot of tension without any kind of real payoff. And yes, that can sometimes be intentional, but this song's more dealing with the temptation of giving in to two desires, and specifically in social media. And yes, you could argue that there could be some intentional purpose between adding that tension, as it could parallel the tension of wanting to give in to temptation. But it just doesn't quite work. It's just kind of mid-tempo, and kind of, it just doesn't really ever hit a stride for me. I respect that it's one that Grandson says is very personal to him, and I'm not trying to discredit that at all. It just didn't really connect with me personally. This EP does find Grandson quite a bit more introspective than he typically has been. He is a very political artist, and I have no problem with that. I think that he is using his platform to be political, and while I remain politically neutral on my reviews, I absolutely love his music. And regardless of whether I agree or disagree, I think that him being political is a good stance for him. It just works with his tone, his vocal delivery, the way he presents himself in his music. It just works to be political. But I think that a nice change of pace was found here in being a little more introspective, and I do appreciate it. Obviously, not every song was. I mean, I talked about Darkside, a song about politics and gun violence, but it does see him being a little more introspective, and I do appreciate that. I think that it's a nice change of pace and does something a little different. He's not getting stale and stuck on the same topics of talking about just these three things. He's mixing it up and being a little more introspective here, and I do appreciate it. Again, not that he'd never been introspective, but it's just a more personal release for him. So ultimately, I really do love this release. I knew I would. It's Grandson. He is so talented and creates such awesome music. I really do love this release. Ultimately, I think that this release does, unfortunately, it did have one track that did kind of hold it back for me, but that doesn't really matter. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 anyway, which I'm pretty sure is about what I gave Modern Tragedy Volume 1. I have to go back. I don't really remember. But honestly, both of these EPs are really, really good, and I do absolutely enjoy them. And if you are looking for some more left-leaning political messages, man, Grandson is a very good standout person in that realm that does do it and handles it with some nice flair and some a new approach to music as a whole. Because as I said, he does have a very interesting brand of music with that rap rock sound. It's interesting, and I do really appreciate his music. Incredibly talented. Absolutely love Grandson. I'm rambling. What did you guys think of this EP? Please let me know down below. Besides that, is there anything I can do to improve the quality of my videos or any upcoming albums you'd like me to check out? Besides that, I appreciate you guys so incredibly much, and I'll see you guys later.